From the last year, I mean, I learnt a lot about myself, and I learnt a lot about my staff that I never would have learnt. So I'm happy for that, you know. It's allowed me to appreciate life a lot more. It's allowed me to appreciate myself, and it's really shown me who truly believes in what we do here at the restaurant.
To finish the week on Dirty Linen, we are talking to Peter Gunn from IDES in Melbourne. And it feels right to be sticking in Melbourne because Melbourne's been through the ringer yet again, just emerging from lockdown number 3. Restaurants can reopen, which is great, but times are not simple, tough. There are no rivers of gold flowing down the streets. But I know that Pete has such an interesting perspective on the industry and what he's doing in it. So welcome to the show, Pete. Great to have you on.
Thanks, Dani. Thanks for having me. I'm honoured to be here to talk about this stuff.
The honour is mine. Tell us how you're going.
Today I'm actually going pretty good. Like if I'm honest, I've it's been a busy morning. We've had an event running in Fed Square, which is sort of we're prepping out of the kitchen here and then serving at the event. The restaurant's been sort of pretty much fully booked when it's been open for the longest time now. And just I guess when I'm here and it's always busy and humming and there's things to do, it's always just it'd be a fool to sort of look at it any other way but like positively. So I'm good.
That's great. I saw a really nice post from you on Instagram during the week, and you were painting the door of your restaurant there on Smith Street in Collingwood. Do you want to tell us about that?
Painting the door?
Yeah. I don't want to know the paint or the paintbrush, but I just want to know the feelings that you were having at the time.
Well, it's every long weekend, every little break that we have, I always sort of give the kitchen a fresh lick of paint or touch up the areas of the dining room. We've got like white walls which get nicked up and scuffed by the suppliers and people leaning on things and so forth. So always keeping the place as fresh as it can be. And at those times, it's those times when we're closed are the ideal times to do that. But last night in particular, when I posted that, I was painting the door with a rust effect, if you will. So I was actually like painting this liquid iron and then comes over at top with an acid, but I was literally, and no word of a lie, sitting there watching the paint dry. So as I was sitting there watching the paint dry, and it was about 10 o'clock at night, and I was on my own in the restaurant, I was just thinking how strange it's been and how I wouldn't sort of change anything, and how tomorrow when guests walk through this door that's got this new effect and it looks great, like what their feelings are going to be, and what my feelings will be towards those people, and what we're going to be cooking. And I'm not much of a planner. I don't plan weeks ahead. I'm sort of like very in the moment, little bit by little bit. Like yesterday, there was no plan to paint this door with this effect. It wasn't until like the day progressed and we had the paint and then we just sort of collectively decided it would be a good idea to do it, and if it doesn't work, we'll just paint it black. And that's part of our whole process here at IDES, and the way that I approach most things anyway is we'll just give it a go, and if it works, great. If it's not, we'll just sort of fix it.
Wow. It's so interesting to hear you say that you wouldn't change anything, because I think a lot of people look back at the last year and think that there are definitely some things that they would want to change. Is that a sort of deliberate mindset of yours where you're always looking forward, or is it that thing where you try not to plan too much so you stay nimble? Like, what's your mindset?
From the last year, I mean, I learnt a lot about myself, and I learnt a lot about my staff that I never would have learnt if the restaurant was in any other state but what it was last year. So I'm happy for that. It's allowed me to appreciate the life a lot more. It's allowed me to appreciate myself a lot more, and it's really shown me who truly believes in what we do here at the restaurant. And in saying that, there's also, I saw greatness in others. I saw my peers like push harder than they've ever pushed, and I saw people's generosity, like yourself included, like all those gestures and things that yourself and Ben were doing were just amazing, and it's what I look to work towards in the future, and it's what I expect from leaders in the industry, and we just weren't let down in that regard. So being sort of having everything that I've sort of worked towards, my entire career, and that's, close to 10, 12 years as a chef, and then on top of that 15 years as a owner operator, having all of that being like basically taken away, you're sort of almost left like in a dark room in your undies, and then you sort of got to like understand, which way do I go? Which direction do I step in? And just being able to do that without anybody holding my hand was really eye-opening, and like I said, a scenario that I wouldn't change for anything.
So what are some of the things that you learnt about yourself along this road, Pete?
I just don't like working a fucking million hours anymore. I don't like missing out on everything, because what I thought was the most important thing is not. There's days like today, like it's beautiful out there today, and I kind of want to be out in the sun, but yet I'm in this, tiny little dark box on Smith Street. So we've been, like I was saying, like we've been really busy. We're very fortunate that, people are coming out and really liking what we're cooking at the moment, and how we're serving it, and how the room's feeling. And this is all taking time to get to. And it's the ideal for some to get to a point where your restaurant's fully booked and you're open 7 nights a week and you're making all this dough, and then you can go on holidays and so forth. And I just sort of don't think like that. Like now, like end of the month, I'm going from 6 days to 5 days. Like I'm pulling it back in a little bit, just because I don't want it to get out of my control. And there's a feeling of just growing too fast. So it's not, for me, it's not really about not working hard. It's just about not working every day, and just not working every sort of being attached to the place, or being attached to my work every waking moment, I should say. I really want to shorten my work week and focus more on the work that I'm doing on the days that I am working, than sort of check out from days where the restaurant's in operation. Sorry.
And is that because, you've got a young family? Is that the main motivation to keep that, just like rein it in a bit?
Yeah, I've got a young family, and I also saw what people want. What my staff want, what my staff need in order to be happy in life. And part of that was to be able to turn off when they're off, and just get some rest and lock in when they're here. And I know that can happen with larger teams, but that's also not my agenda, and that's also something that doesn't fulfill me, is having these excessive amounts of people doing work for a cause that they don't believe in, and they're just doing for a job. So I guess even with the restaurant going down to 5 days, they know that they're never going to have to work sort of a Sunday night, a Monday, or a Tuesday. And that in itself is a bit of a blessing to know that they're off. They're always off those set days, and then they're going to then have another day on top of that, which brings in a pretty... it's a subject that we spoke about a couple of years ago, which sort of fell by the wayside, I think, during the COVID and restaurants being closed, but staff being overworked and underpaid and all of that stuff. And it's still very much front and center in my mind that the staff need to be working their 38 hours or getting as close to 40 and almost no more as possible. And I need to lead by example and do that myself. Because you can sort of, an example being when I was a younger chef, and if my chef was there early, I would want to be there with him. And so I would get there early and I would work that little bit more, and then I would stay late and leave after him and do all of those things that people just can't do now because it's frowned upon, because it comes back to sort of affect owner-operators like myself in the long run. If something was to happen or the staff was to get injured or hurt or you know, fell out of interest with the business, it's almost like a safety net, per se.
It's really interesting, Pete, because I remember having a chat to you about that, and you know, I mean, the kinds of things that people talk about when they're on this topic are, well, I wanted to be there doing those hours. I was so keen. I learnt so much. I wanted to soak up everything that I could. And then, you know, I remember you saying that some of your young chefs, you almost had to, you know, push them out the door after their 38 hours because they were so keen to keep doing stuff. And, you know, there was this grey area, like could they even take ingredients home to keep working on? Because then there was, you know, it was like, were they still at work? I mean, where do you see that balance between the thirst to learn and having a work-life balance? I
think it falls in line with my succinct operating hours, and that, you know, you're not going to learn any more by coming in any earlier here. You're going to learn everything that you need to learn over the course of time that you work here. And it's an incentive, you know, that I want to put in place to maintain the staff as well. Like, what's the point in coming in and working your butt off for a week and learning everything, but then being tired the next week and then quitting the week after because you can't do it anymore? And it's all self-inflicted. Like, one of the boys was in, well, I think it was 2 weeks ago. I give Hunter a shout out. Hi, Hunter, if he ever listens to this. But like I was talking about that event that we've got in Fed Square and here, and the restaurant being stacked. Like, it was busy. Like, prep everywhere. Like, prep to be done. Times we needed to be in certain places. I had probably a number of things on and was like hardly in the kitchen as well. And Hunter was rostered on at 3 o'clock and he showed up at 10:30, you know, and I was on the phone and he sort of sheepishly walked past me. And then Henry and Gary, shout out to those boys too. Those are the two sous chefs who do an amazing job. Like, they sort of allowed him in and he starts prepping. And then it wasn't until I get off the phone, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing here, mate? You know, it starts till 3. And, you know, he doesn't live locally, and I really did, Danny. I had to tell him to basically get the fuck out and come back when his shift starts. Because, you know, starting at 10:30 when you're supposed to start at 3, it's not like starting half an hour earlier, which is my leeway time. That's when I let it slide. If they're there half an hour before but not 5 hours. You know, they do that once, they think they can do that the next day, and then all of a sudden, you know, with the rostering being as tight as it is and the staff, like the small team, like when they're already rostered as close to 40 hours as we can get them, and then they come in 5 hours on top of that, that's when it's just, I just see trouble. I just see trouble in that. I see trouble in that for my responsibilities as a chef and as an owner, and I see troubles for them and their mental fatigue. Because it's not like I'm going to go any easier on them during the service because they chose to show up 5 hours earlier.
Sure, like, yeah.
There's no, I don't know. I just can't.
Yeah.
I just don't let that stuff fly. And it is on us, and it is on people. It is on leaders to lead their teams the right way. Even if we think, we could get away with this and we can get away with that, that's all fine. But look, we've seen some of the best go down, or some of the best cop this stuff, and we're no exception, because we're not of the same caliber. It's on us to set the tone for these younger guys that will then set the tone for the guys that they then lead in their kitchens in years to come.
It's so interesting, Pete, because if you sort of pull back from that, that detail of, a person who walks into a kitchen early, I feel like what you're talking about is just slowing down and taking time generally in life. And it makes me think of, how people would do like a week-long stage somewhere, and perhaps they'd be there like 80 hours, and they would, as you say, like soak up every single detail that they could, learn as much as they could, and just really jam it in and then go to the next place. And it's that intense learning experience. But of course, yeah, sure, it's risk of burnout. And then if you're saying like, come here, you're going to learn. You're not going to be able to learn it all in a week. And I guess that has the effect of someone has a bit more of a balanced life, but you also have staff with longevity in your business. So it works for you in a positive sense in that way as well.
Yeah, and that's right. And that's what's more important to me, just the longevity. Like, seeing them develop slowly over time is much more satisfying to me than them doing a good job once, or twice, let's just say, in a shorter time that they work here with me. Mm-hmm. And I should say that I do really pride myself on being able to maintain staff and having staff around for a long time. And I want to give another shout out to one of my amazing staff, Louise, who's been working at the restaurant since the day it opened, and with me during all the pop-ups and events and stuff before the restaurant opened, and is finishing up on our 5th birthday next month after 8 years.
Oh my goodness!
And that's pretty special for me. And I know that she feels the same way, and I know that she knows that she's going to be missed, and she's had an amazing impact. And you don't get that impact after 8 months from staff. And I learned that pretty quickly with my time with Attica. I worked at Attica for 5 years, and that was a long learning situation for me. Like, it was always changing, always moving, always happening, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, but you needed to sort of be there consistently and constantly, and with your sort of head in the game all the time. And once I found my spot with Ben, after years of working at a place for 12 months, which for some reason gets told to young chefs is go here for 12 months and go there for 12 months. Once I found sort of the mentor and Ben that I was, unknowingly always looking for, I decided to sort of slow myself down and just commit and just lock in and just learn and be ready to learn for a long period of time, and not just, in 1 week.
Do you think that if someone isn't lucky enough to find an incredible mentor such as you had, that you could still get value out of staying somewhere? Or do you think it really relies on being in a certain environment or with certain people?
I think there's always something to learn wherever you end up. And, staying long term, I would never recommend anybody staying anywhere if they're unhappy, which meaning maybe you don't find the ideal mentor in the chef or in the restaurant owner, but you do find that within the staff, the team, and it might not even be a mentor, just a relationship or a bond that can happen in in places. I know I've been in those scenarios when I was younger, and it's also sometimes you don't know that it's a mentor that you need. Like we as younger chefs, and all we want to do is we want to learn how to cook, and you can learn how to cook without a lot of skills in other areas. Let's say, like, you can learn how to cook and enjoy cooking certain food without speaking to some people. You don't really necessarily need to know how to read or write, or in your first sort of kitchen jobs, communication is not of a priority if you're just starting out, so people will take you in. So I think, there is always things to learn, and there is value in staying in places, but if you're unhappy, you've got to make the change.
You said at the start of our conversation that you'd really seen the people around you that were sort of on board with the project of IDES. What do you think that project is? How do you describe it or articulate it?
I describe it now as a modern Australian fine dining restaurant. We serve a tasting menu, multiple courses, starts with smaller snacks. Then we've got 4 savouries, 1 dessert. Our wines and spirits and beers are all Australia first. And the room is luxurious, and it's a bit of a diamond in the rough restaurant as it relates to its position here in Collingwood. This next part of the journey is really about refinement for me, and it's really about simplifying the food and enhancing the service aspect of it, and just making things more delicious, and not being afraid to bring back some of the really successful dishes that we've served in the past. The first 5, I'm just using these sort of block periods as the times that have gone by, was always about trying to find the direction that I wanted to go in. It was always about trying to cook something new and trying to cook something different, and not necessarily trying to be different, but just always trying to progress in a direction of my own. And I think I've sort of landed in this spot now that I'm confident with, that I'm comfortable with, and that I'm proud of. And the next step for me, and what IDES is just to raise the level, just step it up even more, and just really eliminate the fluff that I know that people don't want anymore. Diners evolve just like restaurants should to accommodate that. IDES is not going to be, we're not going to serve steak and chips or fish and chips because that's not what we do at IDES. But I love that food, and I appreciate that style of cooking, just like the type of cooking that we cook. So yeah, that's sort of how I explain it when I get on a bit of a rant, I suppose.
So this morning I listened to Deep in the Weeds 200th episode, my brother podcast that Anthony Huckstep does, and he chatted to Mark Best. And so Mark Best, famously ran Mark Restaurant, endlessly awarded 3 hats in Sydney, and closed it some years ago. But he was talking about, the idea of the tasting menu, and saying, if someone tried to sit him down for a tasting menu today, he'd rather gnaw off his own leg, or some such colourful language as Mark is prone to use. Now, I really would love to have a fight with Mark about this, but I just wonder, how you would respond to him.
I would, first of all, I think that's disappointing to hear from someone who, made his name by doing that very thing, and created a generation of chefs that look up to him, who have followed in those footsteps. I think it's pretty poor form. There is a market for fine dining. There is a market for tasting menus, and I can testify to that. We're still here serving a tasting menu to 40 guests a night. People come because they want to be here. We don't force anybody to come here, ever. Never have, never will. There are chefs that want to cook in the manner of a tasting menu. They want to compose smaller dishes. there is front of house service professionals that want to serve food in a tasting menu format and provide wines in a series of courses. You know, it's there. It's not going anywhere. The multi-course dining part of the industry is very much here to stay. And I don't really know, if it's just fatigue from someone like Mark in his stature, and he's seen a lot, and he's been everywhere, and he's tasted this, and he's sat in the world's best restaurants. Because it's pretty hard to sort of compare, like when you're treated as royalty somewhere for so long, and you get everything sort of taken care of for so long, it's pretty hard to sort of go into a place where, let's just be real. Sometimes the staff wouldn't pick him, wouldn't know who it is. So he just gets the basic service. And sometimes that throws the spanner in the works for somebody, with views like that. Someone so opinionated.
Well, I know you say that people aren't forced to go to IDES, but I'm going to force Mark to come to IDES with me, and we're going to just see what he reckons.
I would love to cook for him, and I have an immense amount of respect for Mark. And when he, I don't know if he would probably remember, but he did respond. When he closed the restaurant, when he closed Mark, I took a proper stab in the dark at his email address and just sort of guessed like mark@markrestaurant.com.au and sent an email basically stating how much I did respect him and wishing him well, and that I was about to go down this path of opening my own restaurant, and I very much respected his fuck you attitude. And he responded back saying thank you very much. And
great. Well, I reckon he's going to love it, actually. Pete, let's finish by chatting about what you're doing at Federation Square. It's called Six with a double S and a double X, and it's a restaurant experience, and it's an immersive experience, I think they're billing it as. Can you tell us a little bit about it and tell us whether you think this is the future or part of the future for restaurants?
Well, Six is it's essentially a cube with projections on the wall with one large dining table. The projections that are shown are themed, which has sort of rolled out into the drinks and the food pairing that's provided to sort of match the projections. So each course, like for us, we're only responsible for the food in the environment, and it's groups coming together to create this. The first sort of theme is ice. So we're talking about like food being served on ice projections and sound being pumped into the room, and then some nice icy cold frosted glasses and so forth being served. And then it goes into wood, where the projections change into like a forest and beautiful serene sounds, and then some smoky aspect that we then play off and serve some food out of a smoking box. And you can see where that sort of goes. So yeah, it's special. It's a one-off sort of event. I don't believe it is the future of dining, but I always think that there's a place for all types of dining. Everybody sort of wants to get out and experience something new, and to some it is new and to some it's not. Like there's an amazing restaurant who has that concept down to an art in Ultraviolet in Shanghai, and that's amazing. Is it something that I want to continue to do? It's not. This will probably be, I think you use the word immersive, or like, I don't want to throw out the word sensory. Those kind of things, for me, they're in the previous 5 years. This is the last sensory or quite out there experience that I am going to sort of put my name and the restaurant to. I think it's my focus is are different now, and I sort of built the brand off the back of events and stuff like that. And now as we sort of enter this next phase where I want, you know, to be looked at seriously and taken seriously, and I want to remove some of that weird shit that people maybe think is still associated to the restaurant.
Yeah, I mean, I went to the event, and my main question was why?
Why? That's
Why?
right.
Like, sure, ice and wood, and you can relate food to it, but why? I don't know. Like, do you need stuff around dining, or is it enough just to sit around a table and eat really nice food and drink really nice drinks with other people, or by yourself with a book, whatever? I just didn't really get it, and perhaps it wasn't pitched at me, but I just felt like I didn't need to eat your food in a setting like that.
Yeah, thanks. And I understand. And it is really where we've seen the success in an environment like that is when all 14 people that sit at this communal table, they all know one another and they have relationships, and the conversations start from one end of the table to the other, and they're there for a bit of a blowout, you know, for an exciting time. When we've seen like 7 groups of 2 come and join, we kind of, I feel like we all kind of know what that's like. Everybody sort of like stays pretty self-contained. You might speak to the person next to you, but nobody really takes sort of charge. And you know, in an environment like that, in situations like that, that's when real life people and waiters and service can really get things moving in the right direction, right? Being sort of prompted by screens and bell chimes and so forth is kind of one-off, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely a one-off for me. But anyway, I mean, you got to try stuff. So I guess, like, good luck to anyone trying something new. But I'd say, as much as you could say there are things about the restaurant model that are broken, the idea of sitting around a table with people to eat and drink is definitely not broken. It is still very much central to the good life. And yeah, I think I'll just come to your restaurant for that.
Yeah, please do. It's been, you know, I think back every time I see you. I remember when you and Rosalind came to one of the pop-ups that we had at Persiad, and it was like because we used to make everything, and we were making this ice cream that had, I think, rum in it, and it wasn't set. It was kind of like, it wasn't frozen, sorry, and I kind of served you this like half kind of slushy milkshakey thing. And I was like, it was the worst. And I always think about that, and this is just sort of how I work. Like, I know when stuff is being shit, and I know when stuff is great, and I know the people that I've served it to. Like, I know when people have been to my restaurant, like people that I need to know have been or are coming, and you know, I make an effort with all the guests that coming through. So I'm very aware of what works and what doesn't, and what I've done in the past that's been sort of a poor showing of who I am and what I can do. And so it's all of those little things that drive me to do better. And then taking into account having to sort of use a part of my brain in a direction like the 6 event, it really does take away from the stuff that I'm truly trying to focus on. So again, tying back into minimizing my working hours and my workload, and just really focusing on the work that I do.
Well, I have to say, Pete, when I came to your pop-up, I don't remember the sloppy ice cream. I just remember thinking that I was witnessing a really exciting journey. And yeah, I look forward to continuing to do that and seeing how IDES develops, and watching your career. And the way, it's really, we'll keep checking in, because I love the way you think about food and about the industry. Thank you so much for being part of Dirty Linen. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
No, thanks, Dani. Thanks for having me. You know, I appreciate being on here, and really love what you do. Like, it's I think, you know, whether you know it or not, you really have become the most relevant voice in the industry at the moment, and it's nice to know you, and nice to, you know, share moments with you over both, food and conversation. So thank you.
Wow, thank you for saying that. I don't even know how to think or respond, but I appreciate it. I'll see you for some sloppy ice cream one day soon.
Yeah, no, you won't. That doesn't happen anymore.
Okay, thanks, Pete.
Right, bye.
See ya. This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about. We spend a week thrashing around each issue, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.
This is a Deep in the Weeds production.
Just keep going because it's just, keep going.
And we're working with a crew that has created a cube